Well, definitely congrats on that last part. New edition of
Thank
the
you.
world, and it's always welcome when good people can help make this world better by adding more humans into it.
Absolutely.
That's great. And so hopefully we're helping people bring life to some fantasy championships, dynasty championships down the line. Every week's important. This week there's a key game: Eagles, Buccaneers. A lot of players involved in tonight's game. We'll talk about some other general dynasty topics. Some news. Was there anything you wanted to start with, Chris? Technically, I'm the guest here, and guest hosting. So, want to intro with?
No, I mean, this game tonight should be a pretty good one. We have some good Thursday night games recently this year, anyway. So I'm hoping tonight is another one of those. I think the game's in Philadelphia, right? So that should keep it a little closer than it would be, I think, if it was in Tampa. But I'm just looking forward to getting to week 6 here now.
Yeah, in theory, that would keep it closer. I think are 7-point favorites last time I checked. Feel like if it was a home game, they'd be double digits. So yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I'm in the Philadelphia area, almost 2 hours north, but I'm close. I'm pretty close. So there's a lot of excitement around town here when there's an Eagles game day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it must be great. As for the topics tonight, so again, Dynasty Gambit. So we are talking specifically Dynasty, and I will say I'm someone who entering this year still kept George Kittle as the number 1 Dynasty tight end. I feel like consensus-wise that was the case. But after Kelsey's monster year, kind of even in Dynasty saw Kelsey go ahead and Kittle in startups, and so it kind of seemed like he got looped. But now after the season that the lack of a great season that Kelsey's had, or Kittle's had, I should say, kind of making me think, I don't think I can have him ranked as the number 1 Dynasty tight end anymore. So I know Hamid wanted to ask, has he fallen? And for me, he's fallen off 1. Now I think I still have him. Dynasty rankings of tight end are tough, right? Do you put Kelsey 1 even though he's older? Do you put Waller 1? Not always consistent. So probably those 2, and then Kittle 3. I'm still not quite ready to buy into Kyle Pitts taking over them yet. I know in some cases the number 1, but what do you think about the high end tight end rankings in Dynasty, Chris?
Yeah, tight ends again, it's very tough. Just because there's so much turnover every year. There seems to be new guys hitting the top 10, top 12 at the position. And like the ones you mentioned, obviously Waller, Kelsey, Kittle are the guys that are always in like the top 3 or 4, with Mark Andrews and maybe Hawkinson emerging now too. But going into this season, Kittle for Dynasty was in my top 5. I don't think he was in my top 3 though. I think I'm at 4. I was like super high on TJ Hawkinson coming into this year. So the fact that Kittle is obviously having some injury issues for a second year in a row is definitely a concern for me. Injuries aside, because you can't always predict them going forward. But Kittle's not a big touchdown guy. Never had more than 5 in a season in his career. And with the Kyle Shanahan offense, I don't really see that ever changing anytime soon. So I think that kind of limited his upside, even though the guy could catch 10, 12 balls a game and still be tight end 1. But I think it's fair to say that, if he's not in your top 2, maybe top 3, I wouldn't be upset with you about it.
Yeah, I think with Kittle, I think that kind of he's sort of more so than Kelsey, Waller, Andrews, Hawkinson. I guess really the only one that comes close to him in terms of an athletic score is really Pitts. But the appeal, like you said, it's not really touchdowns, it's yards. Like his yards after the catch is insane. He's not getting the volume as some tight ends. He can still match them or even surpass them with his yards, and that kind of production's kind of been consistent. So even saw 2 weeks ago the game he played, but he was hurt. He still saw 11 targets, so clearly a focal point of the offense. It's just, again, getting back healthy. Football's a dangerous sport, so any player is susceptible to injury. So I don't want to just say, "Oh, this guy's gotten hurt, I'm done with him," because any player it can be the case. So I'll still keep Kittle in my top 3 for Dynasty tight ends for now.
Yeah, plus, I don't know what's going on with Brandon Nyuk. He was supposed to be a superstar this year or emerging star again, just like, Deebo Samuel has been crazy. But, I don't know if Ayuk ever emerges. I don't know what's going on there, but that also, it may hurt Kittle, but Kittle still is the main focal point when he's healthy. Or even partially healthy, he's still the number 1 guy.
Next thing I want to talk about was Allen Robinson and like what's going on with Robinson? Is he even still the number one receiver on the Bears at this point?
You got to say so. I know I've seen people on Twitter obviously are getting a little upset. If Robinson has another bad game, he's droppable in redraft leagues. And I don't know. I'm not going that far. I mean, the guy's been a consistent producer his whole career. But the Bears, I looked it up. I think they're one of they've thrown the least amount of times in the NFL. With Fields being at the quarterback, I don't think that's going to change much because he looks, he'll go through his first, second read, then he's running. So hopefully they run more plays with Fields, but his rushing ability is gonna cap their passing game. But I still got to think he's the main guy there, possession receiver anyway. But this year is not looking good.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast saying someone mentioned it. If he had a super tall alpha body type receiver like Robinson, he's trying to look to find the open man. He's not really throwing up contested catches or throwing his receivers open. Yeah, I can't quite do that yet. It's getting that trust with Robinson that he can throw up a 50-50 ball and he's going to come down with it. It's when you're throwing to Allen Robinson against most cornerbacks, it's more of a 60-40 ball than a 50-50 ball. So I think it's just coming to that realization maybe right. It's just who Fields is and he's never going to, Dak Prescott. I think about Dak Prescott. It kind of hurt Des Bryant that rookie year. Cole Beasley, the slot receiver, kind of the better target. I think Zeke had a ton of targets that year too, maybe a career high. And so I wonder if maybe for this year, Mooney will actually finish with more fantasy points than Robinson. I do possible. Especially the way they're using Mooney.
Yeah, he's the big boom guy. So yeah, I mean,
yep.
Yeah, if he gets a 1 for 60 and a touchdown, he beats Robinson because Robinson right now is putting up, I think he's averaging like 3 catches a game for like 40 yards. So, one big play from Mooney, it outperforms Robinson so far this season.
Yeah, so I do wonder if that's just enough of those by the end of the year. He ends up with more fantasy points, and it's one of those where it might be one of those where if he in Chicago, next year might be better once he gets that connection with Fields. But I do think that the thing with Robinson is, I definitely hold on to him too. I think even I think dropping him in redraft would be too smart because I feel like it's just going to get better every week. Whereas you're almost hoping you kind of maybe bench Robinson for now and hold him for the fantasy playoffs and hope where that connection thrives. So even if you don't want to start him in redraft, I wouldn't drop him. I would stash for kind of hope that any week could be the week where that breaks through. We've seen with Robinson before, so it's time. Maybe it's this week against the Packers with lack of Jair Alexander, maybe a lack of Kevin King. So might be the recipe for that he needs. Gary saying, "What's up, fellas?" So happy to have any viewers, listeners chime in, and of course ask any questions. Feel free. We got a list of topics we're going to run through. It's funny talking about Allen Robinson and just the steadfast refusal to play Fields at first. I almost wondered, was Nagy going to be the first coach gone? Not the case. No, technically Gruden wasn't fired; he resigned, forced his resignation, whatever it is. We're here to focus on the fantasy. So from a fantasy perspective, and specifically for this year, what does this do to the Raiders offense? I know Hamid, he posed the question as, does function within the organization hurt your value for Raiders offensive players?
Being a lifelong Jets fan and seeing some dysfunctional locker rooms in my day, I do believe that it affects the players. But the Raiders look pretty good this year. Hopefully they don't let it distract them. I don't think it's a big locker room issue. Like there's not like a person or a couple guys that are just, have bad attitudes and are just causing issues within the organization. Gruden did something, that was not, it's not a good thing that what he did over the last, 10, 11 years. And he stepped aside and he's now out. So I think any issue that they've had is now gone and out the door. So of course, I'm a little more concerned with how the offense is going to look with, was it Bisaccia? Is that his name? The guy who's taking over? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize. But hopefully they kind of keep a similar offense.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. So I kind of hope, they kind of keep the offense because offense does look pretty good. The stars are not the guys that you thought. Waller's not being very consistent. Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards are not performing. The Hunter Renfrows of the world, is a big story for me. So as a new guy who just traded for Hunter Renfrow in a redraft league, I kind of hope things don't go south here in Vegas.
Well, I mean, it's not as far as Los Angeles or Oakland, right? But
Sure.
in terms of the, I mean, I don't think so from what it looks like, Basashi was the special teams coordinator. It seems like he's been with the Raiders longest of the coordinators, so like he knows the players better. Seems like special teams coordinator, they talk with most players. They kind of, it's one of those where you kind of transcend position. You kind of just really in tune and connected. And I am surprised that more special teams coordinated coaching hires. Like we've seen John Harbaugh work so well. So I feel like the offense really just goes to Greg Olsen now. He was the offense coordinator, and he's been the offense coordinator for a couple seasons now. So it's, I mean, he knows what Gruden's system is, and it's up to him to decide, does he keep that system and just take over the play calling duties, or is he going to change, things here and there as they go through the season? I would tend to think they're probably going to, especially for this week, just keep the playbook as it is, and he's just a play caller now. So I don't know how much change is actually going to happen. Maybe he actually passes the ball to Josh Jacobs. I agree with you, Chris, in that the dysfunction seems like it's gone. That was probably a huge distraction for them last week. I know they got the pretty bad by the Bears, and this rookie quarterback Fields that kind of has been struggling, and I do wonder if that team was distracted in that game because of their head coach, and now they're longer that. Not to say that everything's fine and dandy. I mean, like, I'm sure locker room probably aren't feeling greatest right now, but with Gruden gone, I feel like that's also now going to just get better and better as the season goes on. They're further removed from him. So I'm not too concerned that this derails it. It would have been for last game, and if Gruden had stayed, maybe, but I think now that he's gone, I think it helps the team's morale, and that should help the fantasy production. Again, the one thing is like with Josh Jacobs, it can't get worse, right? He hasn't been catching passes. The O-line hasn't been playing great, so maybe Greg Olsen decides to use him as a 3, which his skill set in college and that profile showed. So maybe maybe it's in that sense be a good thing for Josh Jacobs almost. And maybe it was the coach, or maybe it was just maybe Greg Olsen agrees with Gruden in the ball. So we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks, I think, how much of a change that is. But I feel like if there's any player that we're going to see a change, probably Josh Jacobs.
And for his sake, I hope he gets more targets in the passing game. Such a great talent coming out of college, and everyone had these high hopes for him. And some of my good buddies are, big on Josh Jacobs and everything. And, he's one of the guys we always seem to be joking about. Like, either you love him or you hate him. Some people just don't want to give up that Josh Jacobs is going to catch 50 to 60 balls a year. So maybe that's the Josh Jacobs that we're going to see towards the second half of 2021 and going forward.
Yeah, so about that, in terms, again, I'm not really expecting anything to change. Like, if Waller's the number one target, it's not necessarily because the coach is saying that. It's because Derek Carr believes that, right? Like, Derek Carr is the one trusting those balls, so I don't see how that changes, like why he wouldn't become the alpha. Izzy's here. What up, Izzy? He usually stops by on the Monday shows. No Dan here. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate all the listeners, viewers joining as well. The last topic we did want to broach is the Steelers pass catchers in Dynasty. So Pat Cat is the way Haman posed the question. I'm assuming that can also include the tight ends in this, just to make it interesting. So
sure.
If we're going to say, we can still keep Juju as well. So you've got the 3 main receivers. You also have James Washington, Freiermuth, and Ebron. So if we I know Anthony Miller's there too. So we really have like 7 players we could rank. It gets kind of get complicated with the Steelers. So how would you go about ranking these?
This is kind of tough. I thought a lot about this today, and I'm still going to stick with Deontay Johnson as my number 1 dynasty guy. I don't know, but who's going to be throwing the ball to Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool next year? It doesn't seem like Big Ben is in it for the long haul. He doesn't seem to be the same guy we used to know him as. So I do like Deontay. I still think no matter who the quarterback is, he's the number 1 pass catcher. This was now it get kind of tough, and you throwing tight ends in is going to make it a little bit tougher for me. But I was going to go Juju as my second. I thought before last season he would be going to Baltimore. Baltimore seems to have a great star in Hollywood Brown now, and I'm still excited about Rashad Bateman. So I don't know where Juju's going to end up next year, but I'll take my chances that he has a better quarterback than what the Steelers are going to roll out. And then I'll go Freiermuth third, just because I'm not a big Claypool guy. He's fourth for me, but Freiermuth, I think, obviously, again, I'm in Pennsylvania, so Penn State guy, a little bit of a homer pick here, but he's great in college. He's got he found the end zone. Was it a little shovel pass or a run he had a couple weeks ago? So I think he's gonna be a big part of that offense, and especially with the younger quarterback in Pittsburgh, he could be the safety valve, and I see a lot of potential coming out of Freiermuth there.
I think without Juju, we're going to rely on the third receiver. Is it going to be James Washington? Is it going to be Anthony Miller, who they just signed, or are they going to just rely maybe on more two tight end sets, or whoever maybe single tight end, but whoever that is more of a weapon than the receivers. So I could see it with Freiermuth emerging, but I'll agree that those are the top four. And I know Izzy saying Deontay Johnson. I agree with you. Deontay Johnson, I think, is the one. It's probably the easiest one here, just because he's getting the volume. So and he's deep passes as well. So you're getting good quality targets as well as just a ton of it, right? So a ton of volume you want to see, as much as I like the talent of Juju, a ton of production, it's a ton of value. You're not gaining. I'm actually going to go with Claypool at number 2, and then to me the really interesting discussion, because I thought I actually thought Claypool pretty easily number 2, and to me the really interesting discussion is actually between Juju and Freiermuth for 3 and 4, because I'm not big on the young tight ends, especially rookie tight end. But he's playing, he'll produce points this year, and because he is so young, and I guess Juju and kind of the young kid, but now he's been in the league long enough, that's not the case. So I think I will go Freiermuth 3, Juju at 4. Unsure of the situation next year, and now like I doubt any team makes him their number 1 receiver next year. I doubt any team says you were going to give Kenny Golladay money or anywhere close to that. And apparently the Chiefs wanted to sign him. Maybe that's still available. It might be his best case scenario just because of that offense. But if he's on the Chiefs, he's very clearly the number 3 guy there. And how much volume is he going to get? So I think there's a lot of risk with Juju right now. Personally, I'd look to. It's funny because my Juju shares this year were all in redraft. So it's just, he's done it. He's off my team. Where I didn't really have him. So that'd be one where I would look to try and offload all my dynasty shares if I could get any receiver to be playing this year. I don't know how far the pivot down would be to have to happen, but give up Juju and I'd say I'd give up Juju in a second to get Claypool. Pivot from that just to get the guy that's playing. So that's kind of I'm I don't know. I guess I'm a little off of Juju just with this injury.
You can go either way with it. I mean, it's against the fear of the unknown. So we have no idea where he is going to be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So. And Claypool, for this season, he would be number 2, obviously, for me as well. I think this is a great opportunity for him to show, what everyone that's been backing him has been saying. So, big opportunity for him. So, let's see what he does. Absolutely. But we got a question from the mentality there.
Yeah. So, thank you. Good question to think about here. Get those mental exercises going. I guess it does transition well into tonight's game, talking about the East. He's asking for tight this week, Zach Ertz or Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys. What are you thinking, Chris?
I'm thinking Ertz this week. Goddard's not playing, right? He's on the restricted COVID list. Tampa Bay has been pretty awful against the pass, and especially to tight ends. I think they're one of the worst 2 or 3 teams against the tight end. So I'm big on Ertz this week. But Dalton Schultz, they're playing New England, I believe, right? So, yep. I don't think you're going to have a bad game at either one of these guys. But, again, Eagles are 7-point underdogs, so expect them to throw the ball more than they maybe normally would, which also means, oh, my God, brain fart. Jalen Hurts will be running the ball a little bit more, but I don't know. I think Cowboys will have a lead. I think Zeke's in for a big game, and either Cooper or Lamb will have a big game there, and Schultz will do his own thing, but I'm going to go Ertz for the upside here tonight.
I'm going to go with the opposite sorry mentality really making it. I think Dalton Schultz is kind of locking himself in as a top 5 tight end every week, to where he's to me in the territory where he's a must start every week. So, 31 targets on the year compared to 25 for only Ertz, which, that's not that big of a disparity. Catch rates off 83.9% for Schultz, only 56% for Ertz. So he only has 14 receptions on the year. He has like half as many catches as Schultz has targets. And yeah, you're obviously going to always get more targets, but yards per reception, technically Ertz has been more efficient, but Schultz has been getting downs. And when I think of tight end, I think of which quarterback do I want to be tied to, which offense do I want to be tied to. I'd rather have the tight end for the Cowboys, who looks to be like the very clear number 3 guy. They use him in the red zone, opposed to, because I mean Ertz, he's even without Goddard, it's not like he's going to become the alpha for the Eagles. It still seems like that's Devontae Smith, especially this week against the Bucs corners. You think they're going to rely more on the wide receivers. So I'm saying Schultz.
We'll see.
So again, sorry mentality that we split the house there and didn't really give you a clear answer.
We're guaranteed to give you the right answer. We just don't know who it was. The both fish like 12 points.
Covered. Both are, like you said, like Ertz probably has the higher ceiling in that, the game script probably goes that way to pass so much. Like I get the argument there, but I'm just going to rely on production from this year and so far. Ertz. Another question from Breck PF: can I trust Devontae Booker to be a reliable 2 this week in PPR? They do play. I had this.
The Rams. So they have the Rams. And I'm going to hope he is, just because my Scott Fishbowl team. Don't ask me why I've had Devontae Booker all season in the Scott Fishbowl, but I have. So I'm pretty excited for his opportunity this weekend. But the Rams offense is defense, very tough. Very tough defense. You need Booker to catch the ball, which I think he'll get some targets. I think Daniel Jones is going to be playing. So I think, he'll have some opportunity with some catches. But that's what you need. He's not going to run the ball 15 times for 100 yards. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, reliable. I think he can get to be in an RB2 this week. I think he could finish the top 24, and like you said, it'll probably be kind of a script to what Myles Gaskin did last week, where it's not really running it. He's going to have to get it because the receiver and catches a ton of passes. The only problem with that is that they seem like they're a better pass defense than they are a run defense. Like I know Aaron Donald seems like he's just a beast, that kind of everything, but it seems like the way to beat Donald is actually to run at him. And that's kind of where they've been more vulnerable. If the Giants get close to the red zone, and I guess that's the key, is if they can get there, they're probably better off getting rushing touchdowns than they are passing touchdowns. Like I feel like that's going to be easy. I look at the Rams inside the 5-yard line this year. They've allowed 6 rushing and 0 passing touchdowns. So teams have been running on the Rams in the goal line, and it's been working. So they have passed, but I also think Ramsey kind of just shadowing whoever's there. Seems like it's a really tough team to pass against. So I think the Giants' best hope of this game is probably to run the ball as much as possible. So in that, Booker should get the volume. But if the Rams get up with so much, the game's...
Yeah, he's still good in the passing game, I think. But RB2 numbers this year is 12 points. That's basically where you're looking at right there. So will Booker get over 12 points? I would say yes.
If he gets a touchdown, I think he definitely gets there for sure. Like it might come down to that, where does he get the TD or not? But again, like you said, if they are all hurt, all the pass catchers, and he gets 10 targets, like he probably gets it just on that alone.
I think he gets it.
So Izzy says Booker's garbage. Trash, whatever you want to keep that single out. He's Booker slow. That's basically what he's doing. So
I don't know if we're going to see Elijah
Izzy's
Penny.
going to say no to that.
Yeah, Izzy says no. But I don't know if we're going to see Elijah Penny. I don't know if we're going to see Gary Brightwell at all have a chance. But I don't know. I think Booker, when he filled in a little bit for Jacobs last year, he looked pretty good at times. And for fantasy-wise anyway, he put up some numbers. So we'll see.
I mean, we saw like even last year, Wayne Gallman was able to do it. So it's not as if Barkley's not there, that the team can't run the football. Like showed to be capable of doing so. Mm-hmm. But talking about the Giants, it seems like I know something we talked about in the chat. The buy low, sell high on certain players, and you have a Giants player that you'd like out.
Yeah, I'm sorry Ham is not here for this one because he really wanted to go against me on this one. And it was my buy low last week, and that was Kadarius Toney for Dynasty. I mean, I don't know how low you're going to get him. It's only obviously he's a rookie this year and first round pick for the Giants. So I think they obviously have a plan for this guy. I know there's a crowded receiver room. I know they like Sterling Shepard, and they got Kenny Galladay, who's not the same Kenny Galladay we had 2 years ago. Darius Slayton. I don't know. Those guys don't excite me. I think Kadarius Toney was drafted in the first round for a reason. When he got his first chance 2 weeks ago, he had a decent game. And of course, I lost my my stats there, but so I wanted to say do buy low. I saw enough in his first game with a real opportunity that he was going to be something for the Giants. And then last week he went out with 10 catches for 189 yards, and I'm like, I don't care what anybody says. He's still my buy low this week for this version of our show. So Kadarius Toney's a guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Especially because he might have gotten, like, it seemed like he might have had injury, so people maybe weren't so sure on him. He's still questionable for this week, so like that alone, that red Q next to the name might be having to ship him more so than like if he was healthy coming off that game, right? So just that alone might keep that buy low window long enough. We've seen it before with okay, so Izzy likes Toney, so
right.
He's saying Toney got games.
So he's
Toney
back on our side. All right.
Which, to be fair, I think everyone thinks Toney's better than Booker, because to that extent, like they like gave him handoffs as well, if I remember correctly from that game. So
he ran a ball the last 2 games. He got 1 carry.
So they just the athleticism, the speed, getting the ball in his hands. Now I think the one thing is we saw with Evan Ingram a couple years ago, when everyone's gone, they will go to one guy and he'll get the target. So is Toney going to command this type of target share once Galladay, Shepard, Dayton, Ingram played, but he didn't really do much of anything. But once those other wide receivers are back, so I think the worry, which again keeps that buy low window open a little longer. It seems like Toney was one of those guys that nobody liked. Like I remember some live draft reactions, even though he went in the first round. Some people, I'll take Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round over Kadarius Toney in the first. Like of like rookie drafts, they'd rather Raw the opportunity with the Lions. So I feel like there was kind of this stink and sour on Toney that is going to take a while before people like really overreact. So I feel like the buy might be open a little longer than what the production he's getting is saying. So I do all to the answer. I think it's good, and might still be time to the best time to buy low might be after if he has a game, and someone might then just be kind of willing to sell a little lower.
I mean, especially this week.
So
Ramsey,
against the Rams, especially if he's
saying
number
Ramsey
1,
has to follow him, right? So, and then just to the point of obviously, will he get the same amount of target share with Galladay and Shepard? Obviously, probably not. But I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball. But how many times will we have Toney, Galladay, and Shepard on the field at the same time? Like, let's be real. I mean, you can't predict injuries, but the history is showing that it's probably not going to be an issue, more times than not.
Well, yeah, I guess both Galladay and Shepard do have a kind of fairly lengthy injury history, and now Slayton's starting to develop one too himself. So, so your buy or your sell high, was James Robinson, the running back. A couple monster performances from him.
As much as I love James Robinson, and when they drafted ETN, I was like, oh man, this poor guy just got like shafted here. Had a great rookie season out of nowhere. He was like the fantasy darling. Everyone loves this guy. But then once they drafted ETN this whole summer, it was like, it's all about ETN. James Robinson is not going to do anything. And I mean, I thought he would still have a role, like running the ball, but not so much in the passing game. But obviously ETN is out for the season. So James Robinson is the same J-Rob from 2020, and he's putting up, running back 1 numbers again. So depending on the situation, I mean, if you're in it to win it this year, then obviously this is a guy you want on your team. But if you have him and you're like, you're 2-3 or 1-4, and you're looking for the future, this guy may not have this kind of production after this year once he's joined by ETN in 2022 in the backfield.
Yeah, the value fluctuations for James Robinson this year. The peak of the sell high window was before the draft, and obviously once Etienne kind of hurt it, Etienne's injury, it kind of opened up another sell high window for Rob.
Mhm.
Week 1 came and Carlos Hyde got as much work as Robinson, and it kind of shut that window again.
Yep.
But after 12 weeks from Robinson, it's kind of back up to where maybe not peak value what you could have got in February, but still close enough to where, he's producing as a top 10 running back a year. So maybe it's one of those where, do you just keep those points on your team anyway? So
Mhm.
what does sell high look like anyway to you? And so you're saying, sell high. What would, if you had Robinson, Chris, and right now you were selling Robinson, what would you expect to get for it? What would be the minimum that you'd be willing to?
So, example for one of my own dynasty leagues is a guy tried to trade me Robinson after the NFL draft and before the rookie draft, and he wanted my first pick of the second round of the rookie draft, and I said no. I said I'm not doing it. So if he offered me right now Robinson for my first round pick next year, I'm probably going to do it. So in hindsight, I got Bateman with that pick. So would I rather have Bateman? I think I'd rather have Bateman right now. But if I'm looking to try to win right now, I'll give up a first round pick for him, or a guy like Bateman, or future guy. So I'm okay doing that. But I don't know if you get it. I don't know.
And I'm assuming that's it's a single quarter talking, right? To buy that, willing to sell for or buy for a late first.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I would do it if I'm contending. I'm doing it. That's fine with me.
I think super flex, it might be a little tougher to give up be willing to give up that first. I think gave up a first in super flex. I think that would for sure get it done. Whereas I could see in a single quarterback league, a team might say, "Oh, a single would be enough." Like that's probably right around the cusp point where in some leagues that might get accepted, in other leagues it might. It just depends on who has James Robinson.
Right.
But yeah, I think at this point, if in a single quarterback league, I don't think the James Robinson manager is looking to get less than a first. Like I feel like that would kind of be that asking price.
Yeah, there's no point. I mean, I wouldn't want to move him for like a third round rookie pick. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'd rather just keep his production and hopefully next year he does something similar. Again, right now, 12 points is a running back too. So can you get that with a crowded backfield? Maybe. But if you get the right price, I mean, yeah, you can probably move on from him if you need to.
Okay. And then talking about some game previews. So I know you had a particular game you wanted to keep an eye on, but we'll start with the Thursday night game. For Eagles and Bucks, I guess we've actually kind of done a job with the Eagles here, talking about Ertz and kind of some of the names. So we've already talked about Dalton Schultz. I know you said you'd rather play Ertz over Schultz. I said Schultz. So that's kind of maybe a breaking point. How about Dawson Knox?
Schultz is safer though. Dawson Knox, man. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of want to go Schultz, by the way. If you're torn on Ertz and Schultz, you want to be safe, go Schultz. Anyway, Dawson Knox, man, he reminds me of Robert Tonyan from last year. Doesn't get tons of targets, but he gets red zone targets. And my goodness, man, he is a touchdown machine. I think he had like 4 or 5 last year too. So he showed up last year in the red zone. But I do like Dawson Knox. I guess I have to like him. He's putting up points every week, but the volume scares me.
Yeah. So would you? Yeah. I guess for this week, would you start Ertz over Dawson Knox?
Who does he got? Is that the Monday night game?
The Titans. I think it's the Monday night game against the Titans. I'm pretty
probably
sure.
Not. They're going to score 40 points. The Bills are going to score 40 every week now. I just got to assume that's going to happen. So, I mean, if they're going to score 4 touchdowns, Dawson Knox is definitely going to score one of them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling, again, same argument a little bit with Schultz. Less targets, because his target share or total targets is closer to what Ertz has been getting. Schultz is a little higher than both. So I would definitely, between those 3, I would order them Schultz 1, Knox 2, Ertz 3. How about Fant? Would you start Noah Fant over Zach Ertz?
No. I mean, Bridgewater should be back, right? So that's kind of where I draw the line there. I have Ertz ranked in my top 10. I think I have him right about 7 or 8, right ahead of Fant, though. They're very close.
Okay. Yeah, that one's tough for me because I feel like Fant is kind of emerging to start to get the targets, the red zone targets with Bridgewater, and he's running tons of good usage, like elite level usage. Like 80% routes,
Mm-hmm.
the type of things that all the other top 6 tight ends are doing. He just, you know, needs. I think he only has one touch here, so it's kind of like Ertz, right? We're waiting for the multiple touchdowns to come with Fan.
Right.
Raiders defense, yeah. So I think, I think as much as Eagles will need to throw, I think that the Broncos could easily throw on the Raiders. So I'll go Fant over Ertz. That is really that one's making me think.
It's better
Higbee,
show for me tonight.
Higbee over Ertz. The last one.
No, I have Ertz over him. I think I have Higbee at 12. So low end,
Okay.
tight end 1. Well, I think Ertz is a little bit safer.
And I think I would still go Higbee at that point. So I'm a little skeptical. I'm not quite as high as Chris is. So I don't know if mentality, if you're still watching, but that's kind of run through where you asked Ertz, Schultz, and that's kind of the question. But just kind of our reference points for what we're thinking about with those two players in particular, but especially Ertz and kind of the line and how much Goddard's absence kind of draws up. Because with Goddard there, I mean, I wouldn't have Ertz in the top 12. I don't know if you feel the same way, Chris.
No, absolutely not. No.
So Goddard's absences kind of make things. Anyway, so in terms of other players, for the Eagles, Devontae's probably in the every week starter category. Seems to be the alpha on that team, especially with Goddard out. So I guess Rieger's probably startable this week too. Do you think?
Yeah, people seem to have Rieger a little bit higher too. Just because they're not that great against the pass, which is kind of surprising right now, So I think you should be starting any of your pass catchers on the Eagles. Devonta Smith for sure. I think
which I
Ertz
guess
is startable and Rieger.
And I guess with Miles Sanders getting 10 targets last week, like we talked about, that's kind of going to be the recipe, right? So if he gets a 2, he's probably startable, but that one's a tricky one because I know I benched Myles Gaskin and had him last week, so.
No, now it's going to be Gainwell again this week. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I think that might be a little bit of a headache. And I don't know if it's going to be Sanders, which I don't know why it can't be, but they seem to be one or the other. So, I don't know. You got to start them. I mean, you got to start them, but I'm not so confident on the running backs.
Maybe I'm lucky I don't have much Sanders this year on my teams, but I'm just looking. I actually have Zach Moss in weekly rankings 1 spot ahead of Sanders. So I'd rather play Zach Moss this week than Miles Sanders.
I'm on board
just
with
as
that.
Kind of a reference point.
Yeah, I'm on board. Again, Buffalo scoring at least 4 touchdowns, and I think Moss gets one of those as well.
Yeah, so again, I invest in the high offenses. But anyway, so that's kind of our reference point for the Eagles. So again, all 3 of those main receivers are definitely startable every week. Evans, Godwin, Brown. Looks like Fournette's kind of entered that every week territory. He's kind of becoming not quite a full workhorse, but certainly the and going to get most of the early stuff and get all the rushing touchdowns. So I think Fournette's startable too.
Yeah, absolutely. Cameron Brate, if we're talking about tight ends, Cameron Brate is not like in my top 20, I don't think. So I'm not really going to go crazy and pick up Cameron Brate today and play him. You probably have other better options.
I dropped him in the Going for 2 Writers League.
Did you? Okay, yeah.
So you basically I dropped him to open the roster spot because he's playing Thursday and I wasn't going to start him. It's like, well, why have him on the bench? I'm just going to drop him. No, until next week. If he goes off, then it'll be a fab bidding war. But I have him at 16 actually in my tight end rankings. So I'm a little higher than consensus because you said consensus is 21, right? So it's kind of in line. So I have him a little bit elevated, but I had other options where I didn't want to start him. Like I'd rather start Zach Ertz. Like that's one where you definitely get me on Zach Ertz.
All right,
great.
We agree on that one.
Zach Ertz or Jared Cook? That's a quick one because I do have Ertz ahead of Cook. With the Chargers offense, can maybe almost make the same argument with Knox, but
I know, yeah, it's very similar. Then Parham will just take a touchdown away from him anyway. But yeah, Cook's look pretty good, but I don't know. For 1 week only, I have Ertz ahead of him.
Okay, so that's our line for Zach Ertz. I talked about Zach Ertz. And this is the Zach Ertz show, apparently, the resurgence. But again, the big news is that Goddard on the COVID list, not playing tonight. So if anyone has Goddard in your lineup, take him out, put him on the bench.
Yes, please.
Yeah, do not want Goddard starting for you this week. So the game you want to talk about the Lions Bengals, and this does have definitely a lot of appeal. And we'll be curious to see where you have certain players ranked of it. But what do you want to say about this Detroit Cincinnati game?
So, I mean, I brought this game up just because, looking at it from a dynasty perspective, there's a lot of pieces in this game that are obviously very important for dynasty. So, I mean, on the Detroit side of the ball, I'm a big Deandre Swift guy. I had him ranked, I think, 7th before the season. So I went out on a limb thinking he would get a lot of volume, which he's getting volume, but not as much as I thought he was going to get. And he's one of the most efficient players since he entered the league last year. I remember looking up some stats during one of my other podcasts, and I'm like, points per touch, like he had the most. So if he's got more opportunities, this guy is the man.
It's like
so same thing,
like 8 rushing touchdowns on 114 carries last year. Like just kind of ridiculous. Like this dude can score.
Yeah, he can, and he can catch the ball. I still say if he didn't drop that ball against Chicago in Week 1 last year, his rookie season would be much different. I really feel that way. But he can catch the ball, he can run the ball. He's very efficient when he gets it. So obviously he's one of my top guys this week and going forward rest of the season in Dynasty. But I'm really excited to see Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Cephas is now out for the year. We actually debated Cephas, and I think the Lions, on one of our earlier Gambit shows this season. But, he's now out. Tyrell Williams isn't back yet. Is it Khalif Raymond? No one's ever even heard of that guy, I don't think, until this year. So, and I just got an alert on my phone from Sleeper that Goff wants St. Brown more involved in the offense this week. So I am looking at a big week here for St. Brown, I think. Is a guy I think is going to have a pretty good week this week.
Yeah, it seems like, and I mean, he's been kind of getting more consistent targets. Like it seems like he's really emerging as like the top 3 targets on that team are going to be Swift, Hawkinson. It seems like Saint's kind of making himself one of those top 3 every week. And, if in the right matchup, he might be the number 1 target. Depends, I guess, with the Bengals. One thing I noticed with the Bengals last week was like AJ Dillon was wide open a few times. Like I like Swift this week. I have him in half-point PPR. I have him as RB4 for this week. So I'm higher than consensus on Swift, which has him at RB9. So I'm super aggressive on Swift. Like you, I had him inside the top 10 this year, Dynasty and for redraft. Just the pass catching volume to me, that's what you want from a running back, is someone that's going to catch as many passes as he's doing. And I mean, he still can get touchdowns as well. Like he's not getting all the goal line stuff to himself. Jamal Williams is still getting some readies, but most of Swift's touches are in the valuable areas where we want to see them. And I do have a question that I'm just going to bring up to you right here on the spot. Is DeAndre Swift the RB1? Has he gotten to that point yet?
Oh man, that's pretty close. I mean, if he's got to be the top 3, right? Like he has to be. He doesn't have to be.
I'm thinking McCaffrey is still there. Taylor, yeah,
I'm going.
Yeah, you're probably Taylor, right. I think that's the top 3. I love Taylor, but I think that is the top 3 right there for me anyway. McCaffrey, Swift, and Taylor. Whatever order
I would agree. I think I would have to agree with that. Yeah, and we can debate the order, but
Nick Chubb.
Oh, love Nick Chubb.
That's kind of my top 4, and then after that, it's do you go with the older guys like Cook and Zeke and Kamara, or do you go with a younger guy like Gibson? Like that's where I know the offseason, the Dynasty Gambit, the fantasy sports doc, Dr. James Freddy, he had Gibson in his top 5 dynasty season. So like I know he would kind of push him up there, but I think that to me the top 4 are pretty established. There, it's a big mix. And it depends. Like, do you like the pass catchers? Do you like the touchdown scorers?
Or the guy with the upside, or the young guys who we don't know what they're going to do yet, right? So
yeah, exactly, yeah. So that's just, I heard, I think it was a Mannequin Chill podcast with Scott Connor and Shane Manila, and they were broaching that topic of is DeAndre Swift the RB1, and the way Scott was talking, just I guess in his mind he already views him ahead of guys like McCaffrey and Cook. It's almost not quite getting as many carries, but he's getting the pass catching role that McCaffrey's getting, that's made him so I've held him up as the RB1 for the last 3-4 seasons. So Swift's getting that work. He's basically like you said, Alvin Kamara with the efficiency. Mm-hmm. Man, if only he was on offense, like it would probably be a really like wide held conventional thing. Like I also like the drop in week 1, like first the first memory, like the first instinct of Swift is that maybe people know him from that drop week one. Like that's your first impression. That's the word I was looking for.
Right,
But
yep.
I also wonder if he wasn't on the Lions, would he already be viewed there as the already like consensus top 3 RB? And I think maybe is that team holding him back where 5, and yet he's where is he ranked this year in terms of running back? So even if they're not winning, it doesn't like it could be a bad team and he's still getting the volume he needs to be a top running back. I'll take a look right now.
He's 7th in PPR format. I have for full point. He's 7.
Okay, yeah, half point 12. So just anywhere that back half RB1, I guess. Yeah, if that team could just score more touchdowns in general, he's probably in the top RB1. So and, you look at the guys ahead of him: Henry, Eckler, Elliott, Patterson, Hunt, Jones. Like they're all Kamara. They're all in the older guys, and you've got like Taylor, Robinson, Najee Harris ahead of him. Like that's the young crew, and like those guys mean what people are going to be value wise thinking as the top 5 RBs. You didn't mention Harris, but I think he kind of is getting close to being up there too with all the volume he's getting.
Yeah, again, it's all about the volume for Harris. I think he needs the volume where Swift, if Swift gets more volume, forget it. He blows everybody out of the water, except for maybe McCaffrey. But Harris, his rushing has not impressed anybody, I don't think, this year. I mean, of course, if you get 15 grabs in a game, you're going to be ranked in the top 5 just because you're getting tons of volume, like you said. But Harris, yeah, it's no fluke, though. He deserves to be that top 5 or 6 question for Dynasty going. Absolutely.
Again, it's running backs are king, especially the young guys. Like that's where you want to invest it, is that really 2020 class and now this 2021 class, which we've lost Etienne. Williams hasn't really established himself. Like Harris is really kind of head and shoulders above everyone else in the class, and it might push him up further in starts next year just because of that. So we got a question here from Joey Breen. Pick one to start. So Miles Sanders, Gainwell, or Kadarius Toney. Just mentioning the Cordell Patterson, Calvin Ridley, Damian Williams out. So it looks like this means it's a flex spot. So this is and before anything else, if you and this is everyone else, if you choose Sanders or Gainwell, don't play them in your flex spot. Play the RB1 spot, because that means that flex spot is still open for you on the weekends. Let's say one of your studies that you would have in your top 2 RB spots, let's say they tweak something tomorrow in practice and they're out. You don't have to replace them with the running back if they're in your flex spot, right? So just whenever you have a Thursday night player, always play them in their positional spots, not in the flex spot, because you want to save that flex. I like to flex spots for my Sunday night or Monday night players. That way, if that player tweaks something in pregame and I need to pivot, there's more options if it's a flex spot than if it's at their singular position spot. You have to stick with that position. So always flex your later players. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. But Chris, what are you thinking about the start here between Sanders, Gainwell, and Kadarius Toney?
I automatically want to go to Toney. I just don't know. Sanders and Gainwell both average 10 points a game. They're, I can't imagine I don't know if they even surpassed that this week. The Tampa Bay run defense is pretty good. Toney, I'm concerned with him because of Jalen Ramsey, if he's going to shadow him, if he's just going to. But I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball. We already discussed him, getting a couple of carries, and I think they can move him around the field. I think if there's no Galladay, if there's no Shepard, I mean, Toney has to do something. So I'll go Toney here.
And it's one of those, and the issue is Toney is also questionable. So this could end up being something where you play Toney and then you suddenly realize he's not playing that week. So I think for Joey, if you don't have another option for Toney, like someone else that you can put in your lineup that's playing, because do the Giants have a 1:00 game on Sunday? Because if it's a 4:00 game, that really limits the options you can replace him with. If you've got someone have a body in that you can replace with Toney, I'd be okay risking it. But if you're really stuck and like whatever of these players that you choose needs to play, I think I would just play it safe and take Sanders, thinking that, okay, he saw the 10, it was either 10 catches or 10 targets last week. That's what's needed to beat the Bucs. I could see him getting that this week. Again, we worked on it last week. It seemed to work, so go with the catching again. Because I agree with you, Chris. on the ground, you can just kiss any production goodbye against the Bucks front seven. Like for Sanders to have success, it's going to have to be through the air, which then makes him kind of almost another receiver, right? So then you're choosing to go Sanders or Giants. Yeah, they play at 1:00, so that's one where there might be you can replace Tony with if it turns out he's not playing. I would like to also have more information. Like, do we know if Galladay's playing? Do we know if Shepard's playing? It might be one. I'd almost like one of them to play, just to have maybe not shadow Tony the whole time. If Tony is really the only healthy guy there, saying he's got AJ Dillon and McKissick on the bench as well. You know why I'd risk it? Because Aaron Jones is dealing with an ankle injury, and that's a later game, or that's a 1:00 game as well. So that's one where you'd know. If Jones has to leave, then Dillon suddenly becomes the play over Tony. So I think I'll agree with you, Chris, and say go with Tony. And if nothing else, I think just plug either of those into the flex spot as well. And you hope they get a touchdown or catch a pass. I mean, I guess Dillon did catch a touchdown pass last week. So yeah, I'm fine with benching backs. Go with Tony, and if Tony doesn't play, then you've got options with Dillon and McKissick that are at least playable. That's what you're with those questionable guys, is someone that plays at the same time or later, and you're willing to start them. I can live with that. So I think with Dillon and McKissick, they're both that. So this is one where we agree, Chris. We might let the listeners give some clarity and say go with Kadarius Toney here.
And then I just saw on CBS they have I'm sorry, I don't know who wrote it, but it looks like they're hopefully anticipating Shepard, Slayton, and Toney to play. So you might have all three of those guys on the field on Sunday, which could bode well, like you said, for Toney, especially if Shepard's out there, he might get looks for attention.
Yeah, I guess it depends, right? I mean, is Shepard going to command all the slot targets? Then that maybe forces Tony Theo isn't as good. Or do they put Shepard outside and keep Tony in the slot, and then that's even extra 10 away from him, which could be better. So that's a riskier one. I think the ideal thing would be if Shepard's out and Galladay's in, Galladay probably draws Ramsey, and Tony can still operate from the slot. That's probably the deal. But I also feel like, Galladay's just got hurt recently, where Shepard's kind of way back. Like I feel like Shepard's probably the likelier to go, and I think the worst case scenario might be if Galladay's out, Shepard's in, and that forces Tony to the outside almost all the time, and that might draw Ramsey as a shadow game. So that, like, I guess Slayton as well might come in and draw extra attention. So but again, that's one where if you've got guys like Dillon and McKissick, you don't have to make a decision tonight. You can wait to get that information Sunday. So
yeah, I think you wait until Sunday and go with the best. Look at the injury reports and kind of go from there. Even McKissick, I even like McKissick over Sanders and Gainwell. I don't know what those guys are going to do tonight. So I think you're better off waiting a couple more days. Let things play out and take it from there.
Because both Aaron Jones and Anderson aren't 100% healthy, right? They're dealing with injuries. Seems like they're from all reports, they're not going to miss. They're going to play, but again, not being 100% might be more willing for those teams to bring in those backups in Dillon and McKissick. So both might turn out to be good options if you feel Sunday morning you need to pull away from Tony. I'd bench the Eagles running backs. I think that's what's the main focus of tonight, right? This Eagles game tonight. I mean, he needs to know that right away. So hopefully that works out. Hopefully you don't see Miles Sanders go off for a catch game with a touchdown but yeah. Okay,
hopefully it's Ertz.
Yeah, hopefully it's Ertz, right? Making us look smart earlier. So Dill's asking, Hurts or Kyler? This is an interesting one. I'm looking at I feel like they're going to be pretty close. I've got Kyler at 7 this week and Jalen Hurts at 10. I'm saying stick with Kyler, but what are you feeling, Chris?
Kyler's still in my top 5, and Hurts is actually a 6. They're 4 and 6. I have them higher than you do. Probably closer to consensus. I didn't really go too crazy, but I'm probably not starting almost anybody over Kyler. That's why I hate having 2 quarterbacks on your team when you have a 1 quarterback league. Don't do that to yourself. If you draft Kyler, don't take another one until way later. But Hurts might have fallen to people. People were not so in on him, but I don't know.
Yeah, that might have been one of those you just want the high upside in case Kyler ever goes down. I still have that rushing quarterback. Like I can see how that works, but if that's the case, like if that's how my team construction is, then I'm fine having Hurts sit on my bench most of the year except week 12. Obviously the bye week for Kyler, he's coming in, but yeah, I feel like this is one where I would probably just play Kyler every week, regardless of the matchup. He's just been that good. If last year when Kyler was dealing with the shoulder injury, that kind of lowered his upside. So if Kyler gets hurt at some point and he's still playing through an injury, but he's not 100%, that might be where you'd start to consider it. But I think he's healthy right now. You go with Kyler all the way.
I always say to myself, or if friends ask me, my input, if you start Hurts and he gets you 18, 20 points, you might be happy with that. But how upset are you going to be if Kyler puts up 35 points and you didn't start him? Because then you're going to say, I always start him. I should have put him in. You got too cute. You got to ride or die with your number one. I mean, of course, you'll be upset if Hurts goes off and Kyler doesn't, but I think you'll be more upset the other way. So you got to go with Kyler, who's like the number one quarterback right now, and ride him out.
And that exact same scenario. Let's say Kyler puts up 20, puts up 35. Hurts is on your bench. You're not having to play against him. No one else got this production. I feel like you're not as upset that with the 20 from Murray, which is tough and might be enough, might not be quarterback one on the week. Whereas if it was the opposite, you're right. I think that's where you'd get really upset. So, but also that's a psychological thing, right? You basically want to play who you think will score the most points. Do you think Kyler will score more than Hurts? Just talking about the ECR, the expert consensus ranking, they have Kyler at 4, which I think that's where you said you had him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Hurts at 5. So it seems like the consensus is kind of tricky on both of them. So I'm a little lower than Hurts on consensus. Actually, it's funny because I have Brady at 3. I've got Brady ahead of all of them, and yet he's lower than both in consensus. So that one's I've seen Brady that at 5. I don't know. I just think the Bucs are going to score the Eagles. I'd rather have the Bucs quarterback than the Eagles quarterback. Like I don't know if that's really like oversimplifying it, but just the way Brady's seen this year, like he's someone I don't want to take out of the lineup. Like if it was Brady and Murray, that would be a tougher one. That's one where I might actually go away from Murray just because Brady's been producing like that. Okay, just real quick for Joey. This is back to the question about the flex, like Tony over the Eagles. Goddard injured this week. What tight end should I pick up? Ricky Seals-Jones, Dan Arnold, CJ Uzomah, Jonnu Smith, Anthony Ferkser. So any names stand out to you there, Chris?
Well, in my own league, I had Jonnu Smith, and I picked up Ertz and traded him away, but I picked up Ricky Seals-Jones, and I'm playing him over Jonnu Smith in my home league this week. And I probably like him over Arnold and Uzomah and Ferkser. Again, for this week only. I mean, Ricky Seals seemed to have they used the tight end, and he's been productive when he's been needed, even with Arizona a little bit. So I think I
referenced it earlier when I was talking about Noah Fant, right? He ran like 80% of the routes or something, and like the high end usage in the 2 games he's played for them, like he's had that. Like Thomas had that type of usage, and it seems like all they've done is they've just taken Ricky Seals-Jones and you're playing a Logan Thomas's role, which is a really productive. I mean, that was a top 5 tight end last year. And I mean, I don't know that that's the case for Seals-Jones, but yeah, for this week out of these players, I agree. The decision for me was to Seals-Jones and Jonnu Smith. Actually, I have CJ Uzomah at tight end, which is 11 spots higher than consensus, which is higher than Jonnu Smith. I don't know. Maybe further review, I might lower Uzomah to 15 there, but regardless, I agree with you. I think it's Ricky Seals-Jones and against the Chiefs. Like it's a good game script where they need to pass. I do like Jonnu Smith against the Cowboys. That might be more of a DFS thing. I know, like on Yahoo DFS, I really liked his price, just because again, the high chance of touchdowns against a team that you're gonna have to throw against a ton. But yeah, I think Seals-Jones is probably the safer option. It's a little bit to the Schultz, Zach Ertz argument from earlier. I think Seals-Jones, just the routes he's running, the targets, he seems like he's safe. Probably the number 2 target on Washington, unless it's one of the running backs, but it's McLaurin and him just because of all the injuries.
Yeah, I think Seals-Jones played every snap but one last week. So he's out there.
Yeah. So Seals-Jones is the answer there. I guess it's 8:15. So kickoff of for Thursday Night Football is imminent. So, Chris, were there any other topics that we forgot to talk about that you seem to have missed? Or
no, I think we covered everything we kind of wanted to go over. So I think we're good to go. I'm really hoping Ertz shows up for me and finishes as a low end tight end 1. So at least I don't look like a fool here on Thursday night. But that's it, man. I'm excited. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's what we should do. Ricky Seals-Jones. I guess it might be too late for the other person.
Oh, what's funny is I looked at my rankings. I actually have Seals-Jones ahead of Ertz and Dalton Schultz. They're my 7-8. They're my 7-8. They're 7-8-9. So they're very interchangeable. Okay. But I do like. I guess I do like Schultz a little bit more than Ertz. But I do like Seals-Jones over Ertz this week.
I have Seals-Jones 11, Ertz 12. It's right there for me as well. But I would think I would go Seals-Jones as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's see how it plays out. I'm looking forward to
it. That seals it on this episode of the Dynasty Gambit. Again, so Chris, I want to let people know where they can find and follow you. Any work you want to plug as well, feel free.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at @thecommish_ff and follow the Practice Squad FF. So me and my good friends from my home league, my best friends, we do the Practice Squad podcast. Comes out usually every Thursday morning. This week we're a little bit on hiatus. There's been very scheduling and other things going on, but check us out there too if you have time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, feel free to plug whatever you want, like it's not your own show.
Right.
But yeah, I'm at Senra Says, Kyle Senra. So for Going for Two live stuff, I also co-host the Monday night show, the 2-Point Conversion, with Gladys, Dan, and the aforementioned Dr. James Ferretti. I think I referenced him earlier. So that's a great crew, and we have a lot of fun. Preview the Monday night game, but also having a medical doctor on, we talk a lot about player injuries, and Doc gives his insight to timetables, estimations, and recovery based on information we have. He's a good resource for that. So definitely, obviously it's a pregame show, a bit like we did here, a little bit of the game, but more general topics. Dynasty, more just injury, redraft, but there's tons of great shows on the Going for Two Live network. Literally every day there's most nights, and Sunday it's in the morning, but every night there's something happening Going for Two Live network. So on Twitter at Going for Two Live. Also for all the Going for Two, you can, and everything Going for Two is on Twitter at Going for _2. So on behalf of Chris, again, my name is Kyle Senra, and this was the Week 6 episode of the Dynasty Gambit.